Adam MacKay, Facts, Fears, Futures, GMOs. Facts, Fears, Future, GMOs, Adam MacKay.
A month ago, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and the topic was GMOs. How it came up a conversation, but I was regretful and disappointed in myself that I had little to contribute to the conversation. And the reason being is because I see myself as, enjoy science, chemistry, physics, engineer, and I'm also a farmer. I come from an agricultural background, potato farming. So I took it on myself to do some homework and really understand what's this about. So, fellow Toastmasters, I'm here to share what I've learned over the last couple of weeks doing some investigation. It's called Facts, Fears, Futures of GMOs. So fact, humans have been genetically modifying our food, agricultural and animals for thousands of years. And the way they do that, the way we've done that is selective pollination or breeding for attributes we want in our food. And GMOs, on the other hand, are accelerating that process, selecting genes of the food we want for specifics that we want. So instead of hoping for lucky hits on agriculture and breeding, you're really accelerating that. So some facts is that there's approximately 30,000 different food products that are currently GMO'd in our grocery stores. Another fact is 50% of people who are polled choose not to consume GMO foods for whatever reason, which leads me into the fears. So people fear things, fear new things, and one of the main fears is that the risk of cross-pollination. So you have a GMO plant field, and then you have a non-GMO field, and there's always a risk of cross-pollination. It's also like almost like an invasive species, right? And invasive species has a negative connotation to that. So what the agriculture have done is created buffer zones around that to eliminate the risk. Another element, and very fundamental, are GMO safe. So there's been a lot of research over a number, I think 30 years, understand about the safety of GMOs, and what is determined, the World Health Organization and many different organizations, is that there's no greater risk of consuming GMOs than non-GMO foods. But it's almost intuitive that there might be a risk, because you think of it, a bulk of the GMOs right now function as effectively pesticides. So GMO food, it's been modified so that an insect or a fungus attacks the food and then it dies. So if in fact there's potentially poison in the food that could hurt humans, right? Well, there's a lot of things that are poisonous to other animals that are not poisonous to us. So chocolate, for example, it's poisonous to dogs, but it's not. Humans can consume it. So again, that's a myth, likely to be debunked. And then the third, and maybe what people find almost sinister, is big corporations managing our food. And the way it works is you have a plant that's been genetically modified. The plant is resistant to a particular herbicide. So the way it works is you spray herbicide on a plant or on a field, and it kills weeds essentially. So it doesn't choke out the growth of the plant you're trying to harvest. So they create this pesticide, but they modify this plant to be resistant to this pesticide. But the company, and Monsanto is an example where they own both, and they own patents to both, so they can control both the pesticides and then the seed. So people just dislike the idea of big companies owning our food. So that's kind of the fears, and that's the main fears. But in terms of, and maybe a good example would be, and a positive example would be in Bangladesh. So up until very recently, a staple for their food is eggplants. Eggplants inherently and traditionally in Bangladesh have been attacked by insects, a specific insect that eats a big percentage of their crop and causes loss of loss of money from the farmers, loss of food availability to the local consumers. 3 or 4 years ago, they've introduced a GMO eggplant that essentially kills insects when they eat it. So what they've able to do is the farmers, so there's more food available for local consumption. There's greater yields for the farmers. And then thirdly, and maybe most importantly, is they're using 80% less pesticides. So all of the benefits, and none really the drawbacks, other than the perception that GMOs are bad for you. Most exciting is the future. So GMOs are generally limited to foods that are resistant to pesticides or pesticides themselves. What about if we create a food that is resistant to drought and it can actually reverse some of the land changes to climate change? What if we can make more nutritious food, so at the same yield, more nutrition, so we can get more out of it? What if we can make plants that absorb nitrogen out of the air, rather than a big component of fertilizer is nitrogen, right? But nitrogen also seeps into groundwater and potentially as a pollutant. And another what if we create plants that are super absorbent CO2 capturers, so they grab CO2 out of the air and potentially reverse the climate changes. So it's interesting debate, a lot of labeling, new labeling on food now on GMOs. Is it warranted? Are the fears valid? This is a number, I guess the final fact is, it's a staggering number, but maybe it's obvious to most folks. But World Health Organization predicts that by 2050, we'll eat 70% more food than we currently do to feed the population, the growing population of the world. So I believe GMOs are part of the solution, not the problem. Need to do it. It needs to be increased sustainability, of course, but there's a lot of great things, I think, potentially great things in store. Thank you.